The best way to understand the subject is to define the words. What exactly do we mean when we use certain words? So we all want to have a life of purpose. We all ask ourselves at some point, what is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Even children are asking, why are we here? But let's understand what purpose means. If I buy a machine, I buy it because I have a purpose. If I invent a machine, because I have a purpose. I don't just sit and put together objects and then wonder what it's going to be. I know what I want, so I build it in the best, most functional way. So a purpose means before you do something, what is your objective? What is your reason? What do you want from this thing that you're making? We ask, what is the purpose of life? Who says life has a purpose? We never ask that. We assume life has a purpose and we got to find out what it is. How do you know life has a purpose? Why do you think life has a purpose? The only good explanation is that we were created for a purpose, so we feel it. Consciously or subconsciously, we feel that we're here for a purpose and we need to find out what. You can't make up a purpose. You can't, in the middle of your life, decide, my purpose is to become a doctor. Who says that's your purpose? That's your plan, that's your profession, that's your passion. Who says it's your purpose? The purpose has to exist before you do. Otherwise, you don't exist for a purpose. So when I say, what is the purpose of my life? I'm actually asking, why did God create me? It's the same question. Which also means, if God didn't create you, then there is no purpose. Anyone who asks, what is the purpose of life, believes that they were created for a purpose. And not knowing what it is frustrating. It's like you remember that you have an appointment with somebody and you don't remember with who, but you know it's important. It can make you crazy. So we all have a feeling that we were created for a purpose, but we can't figure out what it is. That's painful. Especially today, more than ever before. In the olden days, the big philosophers, the famous philosophers, asked, what is the purpose of life? Oh, because they were philosophers. Today, everybody is asking it, even children. I have a 7-year-old grandson. 7 years old. And he came home from school and he said, are we living for a reason or it's all just a big joke? And he's not depressed. He's just too smart. Everybody is asking the question today. Maybe because our lives are so easy. When your life is difficult, you have no time for these questions. You're busy. You're trying to survive. But when life is okay, you have time to think. And when you stop to think, you ask the big question: why am I here? There's another thing that is a little surprising for our generation, and that is that we, as the entire human race, we are a very lonely generation. We feel alone. It's surprising because we're so public, we're so social. We travel, we meet people from all over the world. You go online, everybody likes you online. Why are we so lonely? And here I have the same question. If everybody is lonely and it hurts, it means that it's unnatural to be lonely. Because if it was natural, it wouldn't hurt. Why is it unnatural to be alone? How did that happen? So let me give you the answer and then we'll try to understand it. The Torah says God created on the first day, he created light. And on the second day, he created a heaven. And on the third day, he created trees. And on the fourth day, the sun and the moon, and so on. Then on the sixth day, he created the first human being. And then God said, to whom? Who was he talking to? I don't know. God said, it is not good to be alone. So I will create Adam a wife. And he separated them and they became two people. The question is, if God wanted to create a man and a woman, why didn't he just do it? Why did he have to say, it's not good to be alone, so I'll create Chava? Just create her. You don't have to make an announcement. Why did God say it is no good to be alone? On the fourth day, God created the sun and the moon. God didn't say, after creating the sun, it's not good with just the sun, I'll also create the moon. No, he just created the moon. But when he creates Adam, he made a statement. It's not good to be alone, so I'll create Chava. Why did he have to say it? So there are two answers, and it's really one answer. First, God was talking about himself. Now that he created a human being, he wanted to explain why he created the world at all. Why did he create the world? It's not good to be alone. What was God before he created the world? Alone. There was only him. The second reason he said it is because he wants us to be like him. So when he said it is not good for man to be alone, he created that fact so that we are now like him. He doesn't like being alone. We also don't like being alone. Why? There's no answer. Because we're like him, that's all. Which means not wanting to be alone is being like God. It's not a human instinct, it's a godly instinct. We're created in his image. One of the ways that we are like him is we hate being alone. How much do we hate it? When I feel like I'm alone in the world, I become vulnerable to every illness. My immune system fails and I start to suffer. That's how terrible it is to be alone. What is the solution to being alone? What's the cure? There's only one: marriage. You can't be one with your parents, no matter how much you love them and they love you. You can't be one with your mother or with your father. At best, you're number three, not number one, because they have each other. You can't be one with your children, no matter how much you love them, because you're not equals. The only relationship which you stop being alone is marriage. And you take a look what it says in the Torah. God separated Adam and Chava and immediately said to them, get married and become one. Marriage is the cure to being alone. It's really frightening that today people who are happily married have no complaints about their marriage. But when you talk to them individually, the husband or the wife will say, when it's quiet and I'm thinking, I feel alone in the world. That's not supposed to happen. The first thing that changes when you get married is that you're never alone again. If that doesn't happen, something's strange. How can you feel alone when you're married? I mean, you can wish you were alone, but you're never going to be alone because you're married. How can you be married and still feel alone? Because we're not going deep enough. The marriage is good, it functions, it's nice, no complaints, no problem. You're not becoming one, so you feel alone. What is it that gives life purpose and meaning? The first thing is, who needs you? Not who loves you. That's not a good question. It's not an important question. Your mother loves you, okay? No, not good enough? The question is not who loves you. The question is who needs you. Because if nobody needs you, then you are alone. If somebody loves you, you're still alone. Isn't it possible that I could love you and you'll never even know about it? So my love is going to make you feel different? No, it's my feeling. Love is what I'm feeling. So if I love you, I'm doing my thing. I'm just describing myself. You're still a separate person. You may not even want my love. So, how will that make you feel connected and not alone. People who are the most popular, who everybody loves, often get depressed. You say, what is wrong with you? Everybody loves you. You're so popular. Yeah, but I'm alone. But when somebody needs you, you're not alone. And the reason for that is because human nature, which we don't hear about, you don't talk about, you don't read about this, human nature is I need to be needed more than I need to be loved. Is that true? So I'll tell you the story. There's this boy, a 14-year-old boy, who tried to kill himself with a friend. He wasn't he wasn't living a miserable life. He had a good family. But the two of them got together and they thought, this will be fun. We'll kill ourselves. So they put him in the state hospital for 48 hours to figure out whether he's still dangerous to himself. So he was there for observation. This floor in the hospital was the sixth floor in Minnesota. This floor is like a prison. Bars on the window with guards, because there's some very dangerous people there being observed to see if they should go to the electric chair or to a hospital. Are they crazy or are they criminal? So it's a very dangerous place. The mother could not visit her son. Nobody's allowed. So she asked me to go visit because clergy are allowed. Anyway, to make a long story short, I go to visit the boy. I get off the elevator with the double barred doors, and right in front of the elevator, two nurses are fighting with one of the patients with a taser and putting him in handcuffs because he was out of control. And everybody is standing around screaming, and I go to the room where the boy was. He's lying in his bed. He's reading something, and he doesn't care. The noise doesn't scare him. He's not. I tried to start a conversation. He wasn't interested. For 10 minutes, I tried. Your mother is worried. Doesn't care. What should I tell her? Doesn't care. Is everything okay? Do you need anything? He doesn't. Finally, he says, without even looking up, he says, why don't you go home? The chaplain has already been here. I said, what did the chaplain say? He says, something stupid. I said, really? What did he say? He said I shouldn't kill myself because God loves me. I said, that's stupid? He says, yeah. So I said, I agree. I can't imagine God loves you. You're an obnoxious brat. He looked up. He says, well, so? I said, God created you for a reason. He needs you for something that only you can do. So I'm afraid that he is stuck with you, depending on you. I don't think he likes you. He says, what if I don't want to do what God? I said, that's called freedom of choice. So find out what God wants from you and then decide. You want to do it, you don't want to do it. Yeah, freedom of choice. Anyway, I came home from that visit and I realized how right this boy is. Do you realize what the chaplain said to him? You would think he would say something meaningful and smart. It was horrible. The boy tries to take his life because he doesn't think he's necessary. What's the difference? I'm here, I'm not here. What's the difference? I'm not important, I'm not necessary. The chaplain comes and says, don't kill yourself, God loves you. You hear what he's saying? He's saying, you're right, you're not necessary. But still, don't kill yourself. God loves you. And this 14-year-old boy said, that is stupid. And he was right. I'm not necessary, but I should live so that God can love me. What am I, a pet? A puppy? You don't need a puppy, but you love him. A human being is not a puppy. If a human being feels unnecessary, it destroys the human spirit. And no amount of love can make up for that. So the chaplain was actually telling him, you are right, you're unnecessary. But if you're cute, we'll love you. You imagine parents saying to their child, we don't need you. Like some comedian said, my father told me, if I misbehave, he'll kill me. And it's okay because he can make another one just like me. To be told you're not necessary, that's it. You're finished. Love does not substitute for significance. I have to know that I make a difference, because if I don't make a difference, I shouldn't be here. That's a human mentality. But because of Hollywood and the media, we think love will solve all our problems. If your child is unhappy, oh, you don't love him. I do love him. Well, you don't love him enough. But I love him a lot. Yeah, but you got to love him more. And how much can you love a kid? The worst spoiled kids who rebel against their parents and make their parents miserable are the ones you love a lot. I used to love. Love doesn't fix problems. If a marriage is not happy, if a husband and wife are not communicating or cooperating, it's because you don't love. It's not true. I actually heard from a husband. His wife was complaining, you never help, you never do, you never come, you never. And he says, what is wrong with her? I love her. What else does she want? That's Hollywood. Love is enough. I have to help you also. Love is not enough. It never was. It's not even supposed to be enough. We need to know that without us, without individual, without each of us, the world would not be right. The world would not be right. But if I'm just another person and it wouldn't make a difference whether I'm here or not, then I'm leaving. We can't stand being unnecessary. That's a human being. Animals don't care. So when I first started teaching in a women's program, I was right out of the yeshiva, very sheltered, and a wise guy, like all yeshiva boys. And this woman comes to me. She's older than me. And she says, I'm going to kill myself. Today, I have a plan. I'm going to kill myself. Why? Because it's all meaningless. It's all meaningless. Nothing matters. Nothing makes a difference. It's all meaningless. I said, really? No meaning. Nothing means anything. She says, right. I said, then why do you have to kill yourself? It's all meaningless. So hang around. Grow old and you'll die. What do you have to kill yourself for? If I was a professional psychologist or psychiatrist, I would lose my license for that. Anyway, she didn't kill herself. Why, if you think it's meaningless, do you have to kill yourself? Because a human being is a purposeful creature by nature. And if I can't find my purpose, I can't stand being here. Because to be without a purpose is like being an animal or a stone. And a human being can't do that. In fact, let's get a definition. What is a human being? There are minerals, stones. There are vegetables, trees, plants. There are animals, and there's the human being. Those are the four kingdoms that God created in the world. A stone is perfectly happy to be a stone. A vegetable is perfectly happy to be a vegetable. As long as you give it a little water and a little sunshine, it's happy. An animal is happy to be an animal. Just don't enter his territory, leave him free to move around, he's happy. A human being is not. The human being is different from the other three. A human being is not content to be human. That's us. We are not happy to be what we were created because we have to accomplish something. You're born human, you live human, you die human. What did you accomplish? Well, I was a little human, then I got to be a big human. No, not enough. God made me human. What did I do? The human being is not content to be human. That's just the nature of a human being, not a religion. By our nature, because we're not animals, we're not vegetables, and we're not minerals, we are not content being human. So if a person says, leave me alone, give me a little food to eat, don't enter into my territory, and I'll be happy, you're an animal. That's what an animal feels. That's not a human being. We are by nature unhappy until we find our purpose. That's why people make up religions and they make up philosophies and they make up values. They need to convince themselves that they found their purpose. But you can't make up purpose. There's only one purpose, and that is the purpose with which God created you. So if you want to know your purpose, well, you got to ask Him. But here's the best part of the whole thing. If God created you with a purpose, then you are necessary. There is no human being in the world that is not necessary. So when it comes to marriage, which is the cure for aloneness, we need to know without a doubt that every marriage is God's plan. The person you're married to, you did not choose. God chose. You agreed, hopefully. You agreed to marry the person God chose for you. So every marriage has its purpose. No marriage is ever a mistake. That's true. Even a marriage that ends in divorce was not a mistake. No marriage can be a mistake because God never allowed us to choose who we marry. It's too important. It's too serious a decision. God makes the decision. I know a funny story. I was speaking someplace in Colorado, Denver. This was many years ago. And we have 14 children. But at that time, we had only 11. So when they introduced me to speak, they said, father of 11 children. I spoke for about an hour. At the end of the hour, there were people could ask questions. The first question, a woman raises her hand and says, 11? She didn't hear a word after that. I said, yes. She said, do you know that some people don't have any? And she said it with such a straight face. I felt guilty. How do you take 11 children for yourself and leave others with nothing? Weren't you taught to share? But only for a minute. After that first minute, I realized, no. You can't have somebody else's children, can you? Can you? You can't have somebody else's child. But wait a minute. If I married the wrong woman, that's possible. I made a mistake. I married the wrong woman. Then the children are also a mistake. She was not meant to be my wife, and these were not meant to be my children. So, well, this is crazy. So if I can't have somebody else's children, I also can't have somebody else's wife. Every marriage is God's choice. That's why we call it soulmate. God brings together two parts of a soul that got divided into male and female. But it's one soul. So the magic of marriage is that it's a reunion. A reunion. You were one, you got separated, you miss each other subconsciously until you find each other and become one again. That's why marriage is the most powerful relationship in the world. A Jew and a non-Jew can get married and make a union, but it's not a reunion. They weren't parts of the same soul. Two men can get married, two women can get married and live happily ever after. It's a union. It's not a reunion. So it's not a marriage. A marriage means two parts of a soul born to different parents and different parts of the world at times, and yet they somehow find each other and they like each other and they get married. That's miracles. That's why it has to be God who's doing this. I don't know who my soulmate is. I don't even know what my soul is. How am I going to know what your soul is? So God arranges it, God chooses it, God divides the soul, and then God brings them back together. You just have to agree. That's why a divorce is a tragedy, not a mistake. Like, oops, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have married you. Bye bye. You're divorcing your soulmate. So, what happens when you remarry a second time? It's the same soul, another part of the same soul. So, it's a marriage the second time. And even if it's a third time, it's another part of the same soul. A soul can divide into 7 parts. So if you're worried, you can marry 7 times. And then you run out of parts. That's why it's worth every effort to make a marriage comfortable. In the marriage, it's not the love, it's the necessity. The parts of a soul, when they are not united, are incomplete. The parts of the soul need each other. Because without the other part of me, I'm not me. You realize what this means? God said, I'm creating you because I don't want to be alone. That means God without us is not complete. That's how a marriage should feel. And that's how it does feel after 50 years. Who am I without you? So, again, just to make it a little funny, a man says to a woman, please marry me. I can't live without you. Should she marry him? Or should she recommend therapy? You can't live without me? You're a sick guy. Go get help. But if a man says to a woman, please marry me, I can live without you. How romantic is that? So, what's the truth? The truth is, a man should say to a woman, please marry me. I can exist without you. I can even make eggs by myself. I can exist without you, but existing without you is not a life. God can exist without us very well. And God says, no, without you, it's not a life. A man feels like he's perfect. He's perfect. So he doesn't need to get married. A woman feels that she's totally capable. She's self sufficient. She doesn't have to get married. You don't get married in order to be perfect. You get married because you're perfect, right? You're perfect, but you're alone. So what's the benefit of being perfect when you're alone? This is true. You don't get married until you're perfect, or at least you think you're perfect, or you don't want to be perfect. As long as you're trying to be perfect, don't get married. Don't use another person to make yourself perfect. It's not nice. And it's not a marriage. You get married when you don't want to be perfect anymore. You don't want to be yourself by yourself. Now it's time to get married. This is why in the olden days, your grandparents, your great grandparents, father chose, right? The father went to the yeshiva, said, "Who's your best boy? I'm taking him for my daughter." And it was wonderful. I think they were more married to each other than today's marriages where everybody's in love. But the marriage is not strong. So here's the secret. In order to have a meaningful, purposeful life, you have to be married. Alone is terrible. And what's terrible about it? What did God say? It's not good to be alone. It may be practical, but there's nothing good about it. A guy is perfect. Yeah, so, no, he's perfect. Okay. He can do anything. Great. What's good about it? Where's goodness? To not need another person makes you perfect. But what's good about it? You're perfect. You're not nice. You're not good to anybody. God is good, not just perfect. So here's how you make your marriage work. Number one, you have to be generous. If you're not generous, don't get married. You have to be generous to let another person into your whole life. You have to be very generous. You have to share your money, your possessions. You have to share your space. You have to share your time. And you have to share your emotions. That's a lot of generosity. And if you don't have that generosity, don't get married. Number two, you have to have respect. Without respect, a marriage cannot last. And it can't be enjoyable. What holds marriages together is people who respect each other, not people who love each other. Love can be very selfish. Respect is never selfish. So you have to give each other a little dignity. That's what children complain about when their parents don't respect each other. Kids know this is not going to work. When we were growing up, for a long time, we didn't know, there were 8 of us. We didn't know our mother's first name because, we don't call our mother by her first name. And my father never called my mother. Whenever he wanted to talk to her, he would go to where she was. He never called her. Why? It's not respectful. You want to talk to somebody, go where they are and talk. Today, you hear husbands and wives talk to each other, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And the kids are the first ones to notice. Like, is it normal and common for a husband to say to his wife, "Where are you?" From a different room, "Where are you? Get over here." That's how you talk to a dog. You have something to say, go to where the person is and talk like a mensch. Without that respect, without that dignity, it all comes apart. You start to hate each other. The third thing is, marriage is not your idea. Marriage is holy. No, you can't hear in the back. If we think that marriage is just our idea, then it's not what a marriage is supposed to be. A marriage is, first of all, God's idea that we should get married. He arranges who you should marry, and he is the third partner in the marriage. Without him, the marriage is just a roommate. And that's why it's a strange thing. All over the world, everywhere in the world, when people get married, it involves a religious ceremony. Everywhere. Every religion, every culture. Why? It's nobody's business. We got married. It's just between us. It's personal. Why do you have to have a ceremony? It's because a marriage is not personal. Not like the teenagers fall in love and run away together. It's not a marriage. Now, imagine you have these 3 things. You're generous to each other. You are respectful and you have dignity with each other. Like, husband and wife are home, just being home, and the doorbell rings. Some guy's delivering pizza. They rush off to get dressed. They run to the room to get dressed because the pizza guy is at. So for the pizza guy, they want to be dressed properly. For each other, so they have more respect for the guy delivering the pizza than for each other. This is not good. The point of the whole thing is, marriage is a godly idea. If you're married, you are doing something godly. More godly than a synagogue on Yom Kippur during Kol Nidre. But in the synagogue, you have some respect, dignity. At home, this is not good. We have to bring back the respect, the dignity, and the holiness. Otherwise, we just become roommates, and it's not good. The magic of it is if you treat each other this way, with generosity, dignity, and holiness, it fixes all the problems and all the hard feelings and all of the complaints. You suddenly realize how married you are. And when that happens, of course you love it. That's where love comes in. You create a life together that, how could you not love it? And then how can the children not love being home? It's a comfortable, secure, beautiful nest. Why would they want to leave? That's giving meaning and purpose to the most important part of our lives, which is marriage. Any questions, comments? Huh?
I have a lot, but I'll just stick with one. So, so okay. So, Rabbi, you have to bear with me a little bit because this is a little bit complicated in my head. Okay. So, you said that we need to feel needed in order to feel loved, right? That becomes a little bit of a like a switch in my head because sometimes in relationships, when you feel needed, then it kind of you feel like a caretaker to your, especially to your spouse, and that kind of puts the relationship at a disadvantage because you feel like I rather than being your partner, I'm your caretaker, and that like affects the intimacy, that affects connection, that affects a lot of things in the relationship. So how do you feel needed in a relationship and not feel like you're your partner's caretaker? Thank you.
That was very clear. It wasn't confused at all. Very important distinction. I need to feel that I am needed, not my services.
Oh, that is it.
I am needed, not the garbage needs to be taken out, and it's my job to do that. That's the key point. If you just want something from me, then I'm not necessary because anybody can do that. How am I necessary? So if I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a carpenter, and I'm not an architect, you still need me? I can't build anything for you, I can't fix anything for you, and I can't cure you. Still need me? Or I'm useless. So if you need me for a service, then you don't really need me. That's what's wrong with marrying for love. If I marry you for love, I don't need you, I just need the love. The rest of you I don't like. So as long as you give me love, I'm happy. You start giving me your opinion, I didn't marry you for that.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I'm sorry.
Ah.
Please.
One of the things that is destroying marriages is love. Because we get married for love, which means we're marrying the love, not the person. Same thing with God. The Christians say God is love. Isn't that beautiful? So we worship God because He is love. And that's why we don't want to hear His opinion. Don't tell me what's right or wrong. Just love me because God is love. So I'm really worshiping love. I'm not worshiping God. Muslims say God is powerful. God is almighty. Are they worshiping God? No, they're worshiping power. That's dangerous. What do we worship? God is love. You know our history? God has a very funny way of showing his love. God is almighty and all powerful. So what? We worship God because he is our God. Is he big and strong? Who cares? Is he loving? And that's not the point. He is my God, the God of my fathers, the God of my mothers. He's my God. That's a marriage. He's my husband. Well, is he very smart? Who cares? I checked it out before I married him, and they told me he was smart. But I didn't marry his brain, I married him. So, literally, it's no better than marrying someone for money. A man says, I want to marry you for your money. It's bad? It's bad because he's not marrying her, he's marrying the money, right? And that's why if the money disappears, there's no relationship. Why is love any different? I'm marrying you for love. You don't love me? Get out of the house. I married you only for the love. Without the love, who needs you? That's not a marriage. You have to marry the person, not some piece of him. So even a man who says, I love everything about my wife, she must be really talented. But you love everything about her, you don't love her. So you love her money, and you love her looks, and you love her love, and you even love her mother. The only one you don't love is her. So if the money disappears, if the love disappears, and the looks disappear, and the mother disappears, what do I need her for? That's why she feels alone. So that's a very good distinction. It's not, I need you because somebody has to change the light bulb. I need you. I can pay someone to change light bulbs. Yes, doctor. You're also a doctor?
Okay. You said God created human beings so he would not be alone. Now we know the galaxy existed for 4.9 billion years. So all of a sudden, God 5,000 years ago decided that, well, I'm alone now. Those 4.9 billion years didn't matter. So what happened?
That is a very good question, but it's a different topic completely. And that's why we don't believe that God created the world billions of years ago for that very question. He created a 13 billion year old world in 6 days. You know how you can make cheese get old fast? You can age the cheese. God created a 13 billion year old world in 6 days.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
I just want to address the elephant in the room and speak to the soundtrack to your talk tonight and how it's escalating whenever you're making a really important point and how it calms as as the things you're saying calm. That to me is very symbolic of the world that we live in and Jews' existence in this world and how we make points and the world around us escalates with its soundtrack as as we make these super important points that kind of go over other people's heads, but how it stops when there's moments to reflect. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. I hear everybody talking about getting agitated with the music in the background, but I just feel like it's the soundtrack to many of the things that you're talking to, and it's sort of escalating and calming with everything that you're saying that is so poignant, so poignant.
Thank you for noticing. I didn't even notice the background music.
I'm a little bit confused here. So if I married you for you, and it's not what I can do for you, it's not the love I'm going to give you, it's not. So what is it then? You.
Good question. That is a very good
I
question.
am all those things. It's not just one thing. And then who am I? I'm marrying you for you.
That is the ultimate question. If I take all the parts away, what's left? So first of all, when your wife is out of town and you miss her, what do you miss about her?
Asking me to do this and to do that.
No.
That was a good setup. Though. What do I miss about her?
You don't miss something about her. You miss her because she is not home. So there is a she. There is a she that is not some service or some assistance or some responsibility or role. No, it's her. Your life is empty without her. The funny thing is, as soon as she comes home, it immediately becomes about something. But we do know that there is a person beyond all the parts. So to use a very painful example, remember the actor who played Superman? He was an impressive looking guy, no? But he fell off a horse and he was completely paralyzed, maybe for 10 years. And then he died. And his wife was grieving. She was hysterical. Imagine saying to her, "What are you so upset about? For the last 10 years, what did he do for you? Nothing. In the last 10 years, what did he give you? Nothing. In the last 10 years, what was he good for? Nothing. What did you lose?" What would she say? "I had him. Now I don't have him. So there is a person beyond all the parts. But here's the real key. Everything I like about you is really me. You have my type of personality. You have my type of humor. You have my kind of looks. So everything about you appeals to me because that's me. What are you besides me? What makes you you is that you're not me. When you marry, you want to have someone other than you. You don't marry your shadow or your clone or even your sister. That's why God created angels. He was still alone because angels are just more of him because they don't have free choice. So, what makes my wife her? What makes her her? She's not me. How do I know she's not me? She disagrees with me. She doesn't like me. She has her own different personality than me. That's the part most people complain about. But that's the best part. We love our spouses because they're not us. So, what am I loving? I'm loving the part of her that doesn't fit me. It's her style, not my style. And that's what I love. So, what is the her? Whatever is not me. That she has her own mind, she has her own personality, she has her own taste. Then I'm not alone. But if I marry my shadow, I'm still alone. So I remember hearing from a business guy who ran a big company. He said, I don't hire people who agree with me. It makes me nervous because anyone who works for me that agrees with me, one of us is not necessary. It makes me very nervous. If you disagree with me, okay. Now I know who I am, I know who you are. But if you keep agreeing with me, then maybe I'm not necessary anymore because you think exactly like me. That's why God gave us freedom of choice. Because without freedom of choice, he's still alone. So sometimes when we have complaints to God, he loves that the most. See, that is so different in Judaism. It is so different. In any other religion, if you have a complaint to God, that's it, you're finished. Out. In Judaism, all we do is complain. Take a look in the Torah. We have complaints. God loves it. So let me finish with this beautiful story. It's a little off the topic, but who cares? There's a guy in Israel. He passed away last year. He was a real genius, like, the real thing in every subject and every topic. And he gave a class. He taught Gemara in the university. Professors would come, brilliant. There was one professor who refused to come in Yerushalayim. All the other professors begged him, come. One time, the rabbi met this professor. And he said to him, maybe you'll come to the class. You'll enjoy it. He says, I don't belong in a Talmud class, and we have nothing in common. So the rabbi said, what do you say? What are you talking about? What do you mean we have nothing in common? He says, after the war, I came to Israel. I was a teenager, and I eat chazir on Shabbos. So the rabbi said, only on Shabbos? He said, dafka on Shabbos. So the rabbi said, you see? You said we have nothing in common. We both observe Shabbos. So the professor started coming to the class. But he told his friends, I'm not coming just because he made a good joke. In the joke, I heard something very, very important. Why was he eating chazir? Why was he eating chazir?
Pig. It means pork.
Pork. Because he was angry at God after the war. He wanted to do something completely un-Jewish. What's the most un-Jewish thing? Eating pork. But it didn't feel like enough of a punishment. So he decided that he's going to eat the pork on Shabbat. Right? So the rabbi was saying to him, listen to yourself. You don't belong in a Talmud class? We have nothing in common? You believe in God. Who are you angry at? You believe that he runs the world, so it's all his fault. You believe that pork is not kosher. And you believe that Shabbat is a holy day. Otherwise, why does it feel better to eat the pork on Shabbat? So you believe in God, you believe he runs the world, you believe in kosher, you believe in Shabbat. You're Orthodox. And you don't belong in a Talmud class? You're almost a fanatic. In Jewish life, being angry at God, complaining to God, it's so good. It's so real. It's so Jewish. That's a real relationship. If you can never be angry at him, you can't love him either. So that's, if you're married to the person, then you can disagree about many things and it doesn't do any harm. It's like people say, our grandparents never got divorced. There was no divorce. I say, yeah, but they were miserable. They fought all the time. They fought about things. They disagreed about many things. They didn't like many things about each other, but each other couldn't live without each other. So yeah, they argued, just like we argue with God. I don't like this, I don't like that. Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? But without you? Are you kidding? They were married to each other, so they could argue about all sorts of things. But we marry things. If we argue about those things, it's finished. Yeah? So we have to upgrade everything. If it stagnates, if it stays the same, it starts to get spoiled. Marriage is a growing thing. You can't be the same in your 20th year of marriage as you are in your first year. It's either better or a lot worse. It has to grow. The generosity has to grow. You have to be more generous when you're married for a long time than you were the first year. You have to be more respectful, more dignified, not less. You don't deteriorate in front of each other. It's like fathers who say to their daughters who are not dressed so properly, the father says, "Hey, you can't go out dressed like that." Wrong. If you dress like that, go out, not in the house. What's more important, the streets or the house? You can't dress like that in the house. The house is holy. The streets, whatever you want, do whatever you want. To other people, you can be rude, you can be disrespectful, not to your spouse. Why do we get it backwards like this? To everybody else, we're nice. It's not important to be nice to everybody. It's important that you have dignity with each other. So it has to grow. And the holiness has to grow. It's a living thing. Living things have to grow. And when you start to grow, it's amazing how good things become. Because we're talking about good people just doing it wrong. As soon as you start doing it right, how can you not love being married? If marriage is what it's supposed to be, how can you not love it? So the love comes as a result of the marriage. It doesn't make the marriage. What makes the marriage is generous, dignified, holy.
What about passion?
Again, if there's generosity and there's respect and there's holiness, how can you not be passionate about it? The most precious thing in your world, in your life. But it's a good thing you mentioned that. Love is destroying marriages. The other thing that is destroying marriages is sex. Because it has lost its respect, its dignity. It used to be that sex was considered awesome and holy and scary. Then it became meh.
It's still scary.
That's good news. That's good news. There was a guy wrote a book. A guy wrote a book in which he says, I don't understand.
Rabbi, he's only kidding.
This guy writes, I don't understand, what is safe sex? What is safe sex? If it's safe, it's not sex. Sex has to be scary. And it used to be. Because it is so awesome that we couldn't believe that you're allowed to do this. That you're capable of doing this. But then in the 60s, I don't know who invented started the problem. In the 60s, everybody decided, you know what? It's not so scary, it's not so important, it's fun. Stop being so serious. Have some fun. It's a disaster. It's not fun. It's awesome. You know Jackie Mason? You heard Jackie Mason? Jackie Mason says that he comes to California and he sees people all day long sitting in restaurants. He said, "Don't you guys have a job?" And they said, "Yes, we're producers and we're producing movies and we're discussing where to put the sex scene." So he says to them, "Why does every movie have to have a sex scene?" And they say, "Because that's what people do. So you have to show real life. In real life, people have sex." He said, "Yeah, but people also have soup. Why don't I see soup in every movie?" It's a good question. Why? Because soup is not awesome. It's soup. Sex is awesome. It used to be. Now, sex has become like soup. You're in the mood? No? Okay. Literally, people are losing interest in sex. It's still good for jokes, but in real life, couples are not being intimate. They're tired, they're bored. It's a disaster. That's why the birth rate is down. That's how a society becomes extinct. They lose respect for intimacy. They stop having children. They stop existing. That's what happened to the Romans. That's what happened to the Greeks. Nobody killed them. They killed themselves. So sex used to be very personal, very intimate, very committed. But then in the 60s, people decided, no, it's just fun. It's not. Like, for example, to make it very graphic, a man and a woman have sex. Afterwards, the man says, "How was it? How was it?" And the woman is thinking, "It? You mean me?" Because there was just me and you. There was no it. There was just us. Are you asking me whether I was good? Whether, obviously, the sex was not about me. It was it. We did it. That doesn't bring you together. That separates you. And how do I know it separated you? You have to ask. Weren't you there? No, you weren't there. You were in your world. She was in her world. And now you have to be a reporter and ask questions. And it's terrible. It really is. And that's why the intimacy at home has become pornographic. The pornography industry is suffering terribly because nobody's going to pay to see pornography. They do it at home. This is true. Whatever they used to see in the porno, they're doing it at home. So I speak to audiences, not Jewish, not religious, not delicate, like really vulgar. And they all agree. Yeah, like sex is becoming boring. I said, if you want to make it right, turn off the lights. But just simple. No lights. And these people who are so vulgar and so jaded, wow, no lights. Wow. Who introduced lights in the bedroom? Pornography, because you can't, you need lights to take a picture. Before that, it was unheard of among non-Jews. With the lights on, and it makes so much sense. If the lights are on, you're going to see something, not her. You can't see the her. It's not a visible thing. If the lights are off and there's no sound, not even that music in the background, there's no sound, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, and you don't say anything. Now it's awesome again. Now you're connecting to each other. And then there's no question, how was it? We were together, and that's always perfect. That's called intimacy. So, love and sex do not belong in a marriage. Gets in the way. One final thought. There was a very holy man in Kotsk, in Poland. Very, very holy man. But he knew his students and his Hasidim. He knew each one of them through and through. He had such insight into their personality. And one day, they were talking about the different Hasidim and his insight into their. So somebody said to him, how about your son? He says, do I know my son? I know with what thoughts I invited him into this world. We were told this story when we were teenagers. It changed everything. He chose the right thoughts to invite the child into the world. That's a good father. Now that's a father-son bond. It's not like, what, you're pregnant? What, you weren't there? What? It's so impersonal. The marriages have become so impersonal. But can you imagine? A man thinks, we're going to have a baby. I gotta make the baby feel invited. That's it's brilliant. It's beautiful. That's how you create a bonded family. So we need to upgrade. Sex can't be soup. It has to be awesome because it's so personal. Got to be so sensitive, so selfless when you're being intimate. We can do it. It's not rocket science. Just turn off the lights and already things are better. And then again, once you have that, you can't stop loving it. You not love it. You give me a life and I'm not going to love you? Any other questions? Yeah.
When you contrast that to what we read in the Shema, God commands us to love, not need them. So the concept of love has passed commanded to love someone. So in order to understand the, what we mean by that, and what's meant by that, the meaning of love has to be defined in a different way, and not just in emotion. In other words, God planned us to have emotions. That's impossible, right? So it's not, but then He commands us to love Him, not hate Him. So it's not, it's more of a commitment than an emotion in that sense. So that's commitment is what brings the love and we live together under one umbrella.
Okay, so there are two parts, right? The first thing is God is asking that we love him, not need him. The other part is, how can you tell somebody what to love? How can you demand love? So here's a better way of understanding. First, we say Shema Yisrael. What? Hashem Echad. God wants to be one with you. What's the result? You will love him with all your heart, with all your soul. Not you should love him. You will love him. If you realize that you are essential to him and he wants to be one with you, that's how you're going to start to love him. So the love is the product. It's the result of the Shema. That's why first you say Shema, then you say V'ahavta. But you can't go straight to the love. So here's a good way. Here's a good way of putting it. Love is not important. But when somebody is important, you should love them. In other words, love comes as a result of importance. If someone is important to you and you don't love him, that's not right. So here's a crucial, really important point. If somebody is important to you, but you don't love him, he's still important. You have a brother you hate, is he still your brother? Right? He's just as important as he always was, whether you love him or not. What's the opposite? Somebody is not important, but you love him. Does that make him important? No, he's still not important. The thought that if I love you, you become important, that's horrible. My love makes you important? And when I stop loving you, you're garbage? That's horrible. It's a monster. When someone is important, you should love him. Why should you love God? He's important. Why should you love every Jew? Because he's your fellow Jew, whether you love him or not. But to think that someone becomes important because I love him, that's so arrogant. It's horrible. So what is the definition of love? Love is the right feeling for someone important in your life. But love itself is not important. It's like the cream on the cake. It's not the cake. So a brother, a sister, a parent, another Jew, a cousin, a wife, a husband, that's important. And important things you should love. That's where love belongs. But the thought that love is important, that's Hollywood. believing in God doesn't mean I think there's a God. Believing in God means I don't care about his talents, his greatness, his power. I believe in him. And that's why I love him. See, it sounds like in marriage. Is he great? Is he smart? Is he big? That's not the point. The point is, it's him. We're supposed to love him, not his talents, or his presence, or his gifts. Don't use him to get to heaven. We're talking about marrying somebody for their money. You really don't care about the person. You just want the money. If you're serving God because you want to go to heaven, it's so insulting. It's so nasty. Like saying, look, I don't really want to worship you. I just want to get to heaven. But you're not going to let me in unless I worship you. Okay, I'll worship you. It's so nasty. It's so disrespectful. I don't want to get to heaven. I'm not using God to get what I want. He's my God. I want to do what he wants. Because that's what he needs from me. And I would much rather be needed than needy. Make sense? A boy goes to yeshiva overseas. He arrives, he walks into the office, and he says to the dean of the yeshiva, I need to call my mother. Which phone can I use? And the dean said, you need to call your mother? He said, yes. And the dean said, yeah, you need to call your mother? So the boy said, no. My mother needs me to call her. So the dean said, good. That's your first lesson in yeshiva. What do you say you need to call? That's not true. Your mother needs you to call. That's true. So why do you lie? I need to be religious. Really? You need to be religious? I need to observe Shabbat. Oh, no, you don't. You didn't create the world in 6 days. You don't have to rest on the seventh. So why do you keep Shabbat? He needs me to keep Shabbat because he created the world in 6 days and he rests on the seventh. And he wants me to rest with him. Why do we make everything about ourselves? It's not good. Remember this little story. It'll change your life. You need to call your mother, or your mother needs you to call her. Are you needy, or are you needed by your mother? You need to be religious, or God needs you to be with him. Don't steal. Don't plagiarize. Don't make Judaism yours. It's not yours. You don't need to put tefillin. You don't need to light Shabbos candles. That's what you're needed for. So say so. Don't tell a child, you must keep kosher. The kid says, no, I don't have to. So, no, you have to. No, I don't have to. So what happens? The kid wants to prove that he doesn't have to, so he stops keeping kosher. But if you say, what are you doing? God needs you to keep kosher. Oh, Okay, if he needs, I don't. Keep things straight. I need my wife to love me? No. She needs me to love her. That's why I married her. Otherwise, I could be married to myself. We can be really great people. We just got a little brainwashed and confused. Be good to yourself. Have you heard that message? Be good to yourself. Do what you like. Excuse me, I do that anyway. Don't need to be reminded to like myself. I need to be reminded to give away some of my love and not keep it for myself. So we should all have magnificent marriages. Magnificent. That makes life worth living because it's purposeful and meaningful and bigger than me. That's something to love. So, great success in upgrading your marriage, upgrading the relationship, the atmosphere at home, the children's love of being home, feeling part of the family, wanted, necessary, indispensable, and loved when they're good. When they're good. Love you have to earn, but you're necessary all the time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me. And just to put the cherry on top, good marriages bring Mashiach. It's not just personal, it's universal. When couples are happy, God is happy with us. When God is happy with us, the world becomes better, closer to Mashiach, ready for Mashiach, and then the world can be exactly what God wants it to be. And that would be a very good world. So we're responsible for the whole world, not just for ourselves. If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic, and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there's a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal. It's questions and answers. It's conversation. It's really relaxed. It's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us. Take a look. Click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.